जैसा आप में से कुछ लोगों को पता होगा और शायद कुछ लोगों को ना मालूम हो, हमने कुछ पहले नेहरू डायलॉग्स इस मंच से नेहरू डायलॉग सीरीज़ या नेहरू संवाद श्रृंखला आरंभ की है। इसका पहला व्याख्यान प्रोफेसर माधवन पालक ने दिया था, नेहरू हिस्टोरियन ऑफ होम एंड द वर्ल्ड, और उसके बाद हमने परिचर्चा, किताब पर चर्चाएं आयोजित की हैं और इरादा यह है कि नेहरू संवाद श्रृंखला के अंतर्गत हम व्याख्यान, संवाद, पुस्तक चर्चा आयोजित करते रह सकें नियमित रूप से, महीने में कम से कम एक बार। कई लोग ये पूछ सकते हैं कि नेहरू संवाद श्रृंखला के अंतर्गत सिर्फ नेहरू पर बातचीत क्यों नहीं, और उसका उत्तर अभी जो हमारी चर्चा होगी उसमें मिलेगा कि नेहरू का मतलब सिर्फ नेहरू क्यों नहीं, लेकिन नेहरू का मतलब संवाद अवश्य है, जो भारतवर्ष में इस वक्त दुर्लभ हो गया है। जो है वह विवाद है, जो स्वर हैं वे विवादित स्वर हैं और संवाद की इच्छा कम से कम होती जाती है। तो उस वक्त एक ऐसा व्यक्ति जो संवाद का प्रतीक है, उसके नाम से हम इस सिलसिले को चलाना और जारी रखना चाहते हैं। आज की शाम जैसा आप देख रहे हैं, श्री राजमोहन गांधी हमारे साथ हैं और हम उनसे अगले 1.5 घंटे तक बातचीत करेंगे। शुरुआती 40 से 45 मिनट मैं उनसे सवाल करूंगा या बातचीत करूंगा। इरादा यह है कि राजमोहन जी ज़्यादा बोलें और मौका है उनकी नई किताब के प्रकाशित होने का, इंडिया आफ्टर 1947। यह नन्ही सी किताब है और यह उतनी ही नन्ही है जितनी या उससे थोड़ा कम जितने उसके पहले की उनकी किताब है, और उसे मैं बहुत ही प्यारी किताब कहता हूँ, वाई गांधी स्टिल मैटर्स। यह किताब भी कुछ उसी किस्म की है। तो मौका यह है इस किताब के प्रकाशन का। राजमोहन गांधी जी से आप सारे लोग परिचित हैं, उनका परिचय देने की कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है। राजमोहन गांधी जी का बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं। बहुत शुक्रिया राजमोहन जी। भारत में एक बार फिर आपका स्वागत है, आपकी अपनी जगह। मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ, जो किसी भी किताब पर बातचीत का पहला सवाल होता है, इस किताब को लिखने का इरादा अभी क्यों आया? क्या इसलिए कि हिंदुस्तान की आज़ादी के या उपनिवेशवाद से मुक्त हुए 75 साल हो रहे थे और इस मौके पर एक किताब लिखना था? यह इरादा क्यों आया? और फिर इरादा आया तो आपने इतनी नन्ही सी किताब क्यों लिखी?
तो मैं अर्ध सत्य के बजाय पूर्ण सत्य आपके सामने रखूँगा। ये किताब इसलिए लिखी गई कि एक भाई जो पीछे बैठे हैं, डेविड आर, उन्होंने मुझसे कहा था कुछ महीने पहले कि आप एक नन्ही सी किताब लिख लीजिए जिसमें आपके विचार, आपके कन्विक्शंस, जो आप इस समय सोच रहे हैं, जिन विषय पर आपको बहुत कुछ चिंता हो रही है, वो आप लिख दीजिए। और कई बार ऐसा होता है, आप तो जानते हैं, सभी जानते हैं, कि किताब पहले लिखी जाती है और टाइटल बाद में आता है। तो ऐसा नहीं था कि उन्होंने या मैंने सोचा कि हम इंडिया आफ्टर 1947 का एक छोटा सा इतिहास लिखें। विचार तो ये था कि जिस मसलों पर आप बहुत सोच रहे हैं, आप चिंतित हैं, you are concerned about things, you have deep convictions, deep anxieties, why don't you set out your thoughts in a concise form? This was his thought, which I acted upon. And in that, since my reflections also took in aspects of life in India after 1947, and that was one of the chapters of this book. Hence, that became the title of this book. So I know that if somebody only reads the title without reading the subtitle, if someone only reads the title without reading the introduction, she or he may feel that they have been somewhat cheated. I accept that. And maybe it should have been called Some Aspects of India After 1947. But nonetheless, I've given you the true account of how this book came to be written and how the title came to be given to it.
इस किताब को पढ़ते समय मेरा ध्यान इस बात पर गया कि आपने किताब शुरू की है और शुरुआती हिस्सा आपने राम पर केंद्रित किया है। आप ये बतलाते हैं कि राम का केंद्रीय महत्व स्वयं आपके पारिवारिक जीवन में था। मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी या महात्मा गांधी के जीवन में तो था ही, देवदास गांधी के जीवन में भी था, आपके परिवार में था, आपके परिवेश में था। तो मुझे ये शुरुआत बहुत दिलचस्पी लगी और इसने एक सवाल मेरे भीतर पैदा किया, वो यह कि क्या ये शुरुआत आपने इसलिए की कि आप एक हिंदू के तौर पर हिंदुस्तान जहाँ पहुँच गया है उसके लिए खुद को जिम्मेदार मानते हैं और एक हिंदू के तौर पर आप बात शुरू करना चाहते हैं?
मैं उत्तर देने की कोशिश करूंगा, लेकिन उससे पहले मैं ये भी कहना चाहता हूँ अपने सब मित्रों से जो यहाँ बैठे हैं, मेरी बात तो आप सुनेंगे, लेकिन अपूर्व जी को सुनिए और अपनी हिंदी और इम्प्रूव करिए।
He will do that.
I will of course speak also in English, sir.
Yeah.
But you will allow me if now and then I also speak in Hindi. Thank you also. So we are thanking each other. So why did I start this book with a chapter on Ram? It's called Yes, There is Ram. He asked me whether I did so because I wanted to speak as a Hindu who is concerned about what's happening in the country. I don't think so. When I was writing this, I wasn't conscious that I was a Hindu. I wasn't conscious that I was an Indian. I wasn't conscious that I was an Indian who was born in Delhi and who now has been teaching in the United States. I wasn't thinking really of myself. I wanted to relate, because the book is called Reflections and Recollections. I was recollecting my childhood. I was recollecting the fact that Ram was a constant element around me. And when my father produced this English translation of Tulsidasa's Ramayana, done by this English missionary in Garhwal, Reverend Atkins, A.G. Atkins. I think I was 13, 14 or 15 or so at the time. I was around him. There was this wonderful man, Nanhe Khan, and his nephew, Jamal Bhai. They were the binders of these books. एक ज़माने में बाइंडिंग तो बहुत ही मुश्किल कला थी. It was a very difficult art. And all of us were immersed. You know how it is in... there's a family, there's an office, there's a printing press, but everybody is there together. And my father was very keen that this book was published, by the way, in English. Then it was published in English also with the original Hindi, Tulsidasa's Hindi. It was also published only in English on thin rice paper, so it could be sold all over the world. It could be shipped inexpensively around the world. And my father said to the printing team, let us have a Hanuman face on every page. And I gathered also, although I wasn't privy to the entire correspondence, that Reverend A.G. Atkins was to begin with a little hesitant. This was an imposition on his translation. But publishers often carry the day. So my father insisted, and Reverend A.G. Atkins agreed. And so there was this picture of Hanuman on the outer margin of the left-hand page, on the left side, and the right-hand side. So all this was a part of my life. And my brother Ramchandra was called Ramchandra. And you know, the title of this chapter is Yes, There is Ram. So there's a great distinction between the living Ram who is still here and Ram, the historical figure or the supposed historical figure who lived 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years ago. And I wanted also to draw this contrast between imagining Ram as a figure who was born in a specific place at a particular but yet undetermined time in the distant past, and the living Ram, living at least in the minds and hearts of millions of people, in the minds and hearts of millions who do say Jai Ram Ji Ki, Ram Ram. When they say Ram Ram, Jai Ram Ji Ki, they're not referring to some historical figure who was born in place X, who died in place Y, who fought battles in place Z. So I wanted to share with any readers that I might be blessed with my recollections of growing up with a sense of a living Ram, who as not only my father, my mother, myself, my mother's father Rajaji, Gandhiji, and so many millions of others thought of as a way of referring to, summoning, reaching out to a powerful living entity. Some call Ram, others call Shiva, others call Krishna, others call God, Jehovah, Allah, Khuda, Vaheguru.
ये बात जब आप लिखते हैं तो मुझे गांधी की बात ही याद आई, जो गीता के बारे में भी लिखते हैं और राम का जिक्र आने पर कहते हैं कि ये मेरे लिए ऐतिहासिक कृति या ऐतिहासिक चरित्र नहीं है, बल्कि ये काल्पनिक और कविता है। मुझे जहाँ तक याद है वे शब्द का इस्तेमाल करते हैं कि यह कविता है मेरे लिए। ये मुझे बहुत रुचिकर लगा कि गांधी इसको कविता की तरह देखते हैं, कल्पना की तरह देखते हैं, जो हमेशा मौजूद रह सकती है, जिसे आप किसी एक ख़ास ऐतिहासिक बिंदु पर स्थित नहीं कर सकते हैं, किसी एक भौगोलिक स्थान पर नहीं डाल सकते हैं, जो हर जगह मौजूद है। तो ये जो इतिहास और कल्पना के बीच की चीज़ है, और गांधी का गीता के प्रति भी और राम के प्रति भी ये जो रवैया है, इसके बारे में आप कुछ और कहना चाहेंगे, जो खुद आपका भी रवैया है?
हाँ, मेरा भी वैसा ही विचार है। And this also was not only Gandhi is on record saying several times that the Ram I worship is not a man with 2 arms and 2 legs. And he goes on to say that he is the eternal, that referred to in different ways by different people. Gandhi loved the name Ram. And the sound of the word Ram, the letters of Ram in Gujarati or Hindi or Roman script or any script, gave him, brought him closer to what he was depending on, what he was aware was playing a role, is playing a role in this world. By the way, here I must also mention that, and I think I mentioned it in the book too, when I was doing my Patel biography, in the famous Bardoli Satyagraha of 1928, and some Gujarati peasant women say to him that we are succeeding because you are here. And Vallabhbhai says to them, no, you are succeeding because Ramji is here. He doesn't say because Ramji was here or was in Ayodhya. We are succeeding because Ramji is here. And but you're quite right that Gandhiji had this view of Ram as a name. Yes, but let us also, but before, and Rajaji, by the way, who translated the Ramayana into Tamil, is done into many other languages, and then into English. Amazingly beautiful renderings, and his Ramayana and his Mahabharata was hugely popular. And lakhs of young Indians in the 50s, 60s, 70s grew up on Rajaji's Ramayana and Mahabharata. And he also is in record as saying that These are incredible literary creations. Acharya too said that. But I think, but before we conclude on that note, let us also marvel at the power of Valmiki's Ramayana and what it has done to hundreds of millions in the world. We may, if we wish, conclude by saying, well, amazing literary creations, but I think there is something, after all, even in the literary creation, Valmiki refers to, and the gods in the poem also refer to Ram as the perfect God. So there is the sense of Raman. Yes, he may be a literary creation, but it is a creation that tries to bring us closer to this great, mysterious, and yet very real force that many millions of people feel. So I would, while endorsing your remark and endorsing your pointing out the fact that Gandhiji had this view of Rama and Krishna in the Mahabharata, but let us also recognize that this creation by a supreme artist has enabled hundreds of millions of people all around the world to have this sense of contact with the indescribable, mysterious power in the world.
तो आप इसे क्रमबद्ध तरीके से लिखते हैं कि राम जन्मभूमि विवाद, आप अलग अलग व्यक्तित्वों का नाम, शख्सियत का जिक्र करते हैं और कहते हैं कि इनके लिए कभी मुद्दा नहीं था, इनके लिए कभी मुद्दा नहीं था, इनके लिए कभी मुद्दा नहीं था। ये कभी मुद्दा था नहीं। 80 के दशक के पहले तो आपकी जो परवरिश है और उसके बाद से एक लंबा जीवन, उस वक्त तक राम जन्मभूमि मुद्दा नहीं था और वो 80 के दशक के बाद बना। लेकिन वो इतना ताकतवर ख्याल क्यों हो गया होगा, उस पर आपने इसमें विचार नहीं किया है और उसकी आवश्यकता नहीं है, लेकिन मैं इस मौके का इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूँ ताकि आप इस पर कुछ सोच सकें।
This is a very important question. He is asking why. I'm translating it for my Naga friend. I'm translating you for my Naga friend. He is asking, why did Ram become such a powerful, or the movement for the Ram temple gather this great force in the 80s? Why do I think that? It seems to me that this was connected very much with the politics of the day. And it was absolutely intertwined with identifying the Muslims as the problem, as the enemy, as the danger of India. So that is how it got traction. Yes, but let's also remember that the Rama child, the Balak Ram, the Bacha Ram, is a very loved symbol for me. There are so many wonderful songs about baby Ram and how all the women in Ayodhya are very keen to lift this boy and play with him, and how he captures them. So Sri Lal Krishna Advani and his friends, before him the Vishwindu Parishad, Mr. Singhal and many others, they were able to marry the love of the child Rama with the dislike, or I would say the intensified, often manufactured dislike of Muslims, and the resentment of Muslims. So it was a very powerful combination. Love of the child Rama and the dislike of Muslims. You see, these people came, foreigners came. There was this, Ram was born here. was a temple here. They demolished the temple, created the mosque, because they wanted to say, we will rule and your religion is no good. So that sort of emotional argument certainly worked with many.
इस किताब में आगे आप हिंदुस्तान के 1947 के बाद के सफ़र की चर्चा करते हैं और उसमें आप अलग अलग शख्सियतों का जिक्र करते हैं। गांधी तो हैं ही, पटेल हैं, नेहरू हैं, बाद में मोरारजी देसाई आते हैं। आप ये जो पर्सनैलिटीज़ हैं, आप इनके ज़रिए, और मैंने ये भी देखा है कि आपकी रुचि बायोग्राफी में है, यानी लोगों में है, शख्सियत में है, जबकि एक तरीका इतिहास को देखने का यह भी है कि यह दरअसल व्यक्ति निरपेक्ष प्रक्रियाओं का सिलसिला है, ये एक सिलसिला है। तो आपकी रुचि शख्सियतों में इतनी क्यों?
ये शायद मेरा स्वभाव है। He's asking why I'm interested in individuals more than in processes or in systems or in social currents. I'm interested in those also, very much so. But I didn't write, incidentally, I must also add, these days I'm known as the well-known historian. I have never thought of myself as a historian, well-known or ill-known. I am a student of history as I'm a student of many other things. And I've enjoyed writing some histories, apart from writing about Sardar Patel and various other biographies. I've also written a history of Punjab. I've written a history of modern South India. And I've written a book called Revenge and Reconciliation, which David published also when he was with Penguins. And I titled it, it's a South Asian history from the Mahabharata to our times. It was a very bold attempt on my part. So yes, I have tried at times to write histories as I understand them. But this book is not a history of India after 1947, although the title may give that impression. So yes, in places I have tried to summarize some historical developments in this book. If I were to try to write purely, not recollections, not reflections, but my understanding of Indian history after 47, I think it would have had a different flavor altogether. And the personalities may not have featured so strongly. And those personalities that are featured in this book are those personalities with whom I interacted. And I assume that my interactions with them and my glimpses of them might be of some interest to some readers. That was, इसलिए मैंने मोरारजी भाई के बारे में, चरण सिंह जी, जगजीवन राम जी, जयप्रकाश जी वगैरह के बारे में लिखा है, जवाहरलाल जी के बारे में भी लिखा है, written about him too, because I had the chance to meet him on more than one occasion. I had wonderful interactions with him.
जवाहरलाल नेहरू के बारे में जो आपने लिखा है वो यह कि उनकी खासियत है विरोध को या विवाद को जगह देना, जो विरोधी मत है उसको जगह देना, इनका डिसेंट को जगह देना, असहमति को जगह देना। तो क्या यह एक गुण है जिसको आप सबसे आगे रखना चाहेंगे नेहरू का, या कोई और भी गुण?
नहीं, कई गुण हैं, मैं उनकी शायद गुणों के I will not compare his various qualities, but this was certainly one amazing quality of his, and of course it shines now when you look at the situation today, shines all the more. It was incredible, his eagerness to listen to opposition speakers in parliament. He would always be there when opposition leaders were speaking. And his defense of the free press. Of course, there was a modest amendment that was, a serious amendment that came fairly soon, with some restrictions on freedom of the press. That's a separate matter. But Nehru was a passionate defender of dissent, of freedom of expression as an important part of democracy. But of course there were other amazing qualities of the man. His identification with aspirations for justice, to remove the shame of inequality, and also his rational approach, his wanting to study everything as rationally as possible. His objection to superstitions and prejudices. And of course, this is not a moment for me to recite Nehru's greatness. This is neither part of my book nor is necessary. But we all know of his incredible role in so many areas. But I would say that his passionate defense of dissent was certainly one of his tremendous contributions.
अब नेहरू और गांधी और उनके सहकर्मियों के बारे में आगे और बात करेंगे, लेकिन उसके पहले मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ, जो बात आपने इस किताब में लिखी है और दूसरी जगह भी लिखी है, वह यह है कि हिंदुस्तान की गाड़ी चल रही थी थोड़े हिचकोले खाते हुए, और 30 के दशक तक ऐसा लगा कि वो शायद अपने मुकाम पे पहुंच जाएगी इधर उधर होते हुए, लेकिन उसके सामने एक बोल्डर आ गया हिटलर नाम का, और उससे जो टकराई ये गाड़ी, तो उससे वह दिशा बदल गई और उसका एक रिश्ता विभाजन से है। इस पर बहुत चर्चा नहीं हुई है, हालांकि यह ख्याल आपने दूसरी जगह भी जाहिर किया है। इसके बारे में आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे कि विभाजन के लिए आप कहते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान की गाड़ी अगर हिटलर नामक बोल्डर से न टकराई होती तो संभवतः उसकी दिशा कुछ होती।
I thank you for asking this very important question. He's asking me to amplify the remark I've made in this book and also in other books, that India's train of independence was moving fairly steadily towards its terminus, its destination, until it hit this roadblock called Hitler. And this is anybody who studies the history carefully is likely to reach that conclusion, because here many of you may not be aware, but in the late 1930s, from 1937 to 39, there were these elected governments in different parts of India. Elected governments which did not have very great power, but they had considerable power. There was a British Viceroy in Delhi, there were British Executive Council in Delhi, and there were powerful British bureaucrats, and the British Army and the police was all over India, not in immense numbers, but very powerful. But there were these elected popular governments in so many parts of India, and there was a very interesting, Gandhi has used the word pact, some kind of understanding that maybe we will go forward and like this, we will collaborate when needed, we will contest, oppose where needed, but ultimately this could lead to independence. This seemed to be the direction. And then Hitler invaded Poland, in the empire, in India and elsewhere. Its preoccupation became protecting Britain and the empire against Hitler. And the desire to cooperate in India's journey towards independence, which was shared by some British people, not by everyone, that desire went backstage. It went away. And the British, instead of cooperating in India's march towards self-government and independence, their sole preoccupation was how to preserve the empire everywhere and prevent pro-Hitler and pro-Japanese forces from succeeding. And so that was one, the British became less willing to assist the journey towards independence, and the Indians became more eager for independence. If you are fighting a war for Czechoslovakia's freedom, for Poland's freedom, what about India's freedom? We will fight harder than ever. So the British became more cautious, the Indians became more eager, and then, as a result of India's eagerness for independence, Gandhi launched Quit India, And many of the Congress leaders went to prison, thousands and thousands of them. Then Jinnah had opportunities he never had earlier. And there were some Hindus who said, we will also take this chance, we will join the army. Savarkar said, join the army, get training in war, and then you will be able to fight the Muslims thereafter more easily. So Jinnah got Philip a lift. The Hindu extremists got a lift. And that, of course, eventually contributed to partition.
तो विभाजन पर जब हम बात कर रहे हैं और तो अक्सर ये कहा जाता है कि गांधी विभाजन के खिलाफ थे और गांधी को नकारते हुए उनके सहकर्मियों ने पटेल, नेहरू, राजाजी, इन सारे लोगों ने विभाजन को स्वीकार किया। इस तरह गांधी को अकेला छोड़ दिया। तो गांधी अपने आखिरी दिनों में अकेले थे। आपने इसको दूसरी जगह भी लिखा है और यहाँ भी आपने संक्षेप में लिखा है कि यह बात उस वक्त भी जब प्रचारित की गई कि दोनों में काफ़ी मतभेद हो गया है, तो गांधी ने कहा कि ऐसा कोई मतभेद हमारे बीच नहीं हुआ और हम सब साथ हैं। लेकिन यह ख्याल कि गांधी को अकेला छोड़ दिया गया था उनके दोस्तों के द्वारा, और अकेला इसलिए छोड़ दिया गया था कि नेहरू को पद की लालसा थी। वे प्रधानमंत्री होना चाहते थे किसी भी तरह और वे थक गए थे डरते डरते और आगे इसको टाल नहीं सकते थे, और इसीलिए उन्होंने गांधी का वो प्रस्ताव नहीं माना कि जिन्ना को प्रधानमंत्री बना दिया जाए। इस पूरी धारणा पर आपका क्या है?
This is a very crucial question and a very important historical question. Everybody knows, those who have studied it, although many have not studied it. This again, by the way, is a very common feature of Indian political debate. Passionate argument without any study. So, there is this, everybody knows, by the way, this Gandhi's proposal for a Jinnah Prime Ministership to save United India is a very important initiative. And it is, to me, quite extraordinary in this highly literate, highly intelligent country that so little attention has been given to documents that are in the public domain and so easily found in the public domain, in the transfer of power volumes and elsewhere. I think it is quite significant that more people have not written about this subject on which you have asked your question. It is a very interesting initiative. Earlier, you know that Gandhi had this talk with Jinnah 14 times in September of 44 in Bombay. That again is something that very few people have really studied, very important series of negotiations. And my understanding tells me that Gandhi found that why is Jinnah rejecting this that seems to be almost conceding almost all that he's asking for. Then Gandhi surmised that maybe Jinnah is not only interested in the Muslims in the Muslim majority areas, he's also interested in Muslims everywhere. He's interested not only in the areas that became Pakistan in 47, he's also interested in the rest of India. If he is, why not give him a chance to be the Prime Minister of a united India? And Congress will give him support in the legislature, and by that it will also have some influence over him. And I think some of you should know, if you don't, that this very remarkable outstanding civil servant from where George comes from, Mr. V.P. Menon, was a very important official with the Viceroy. He produced this paper, which is there in the transfer of power volumes, Tactics to be adopted with respect to Gandhi's plan. how to scuttle and defeat that bill. And of course, Patel was totally opposed to it. Now, Gandhi offered this plan first to the Congress Working Committee, then also to Mountbatten, more or less simultaneously. And after some days, Gandhi said that the others don't agree, and I'm withdrawing this plan. And in the course of this letter that he writes to Mountbatten, he says, I've had long discussions with several members of the Working Committee, and I also had a long discussion on this with Jawaharlal Nehru alone. I wish there was some record of that conversation of Gandhi and Nehru. Why Nehru said no, he could not agree to this. Patel was totally opposed to it. This, by the way, is not well known. That the greatest advocate of partition after December 1946 was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel within the Congress leadership. Rajan Babu and Rajagopalachari, of course, had proposed this even in 1942 itself. And when the Congress Working Committee rejected Gandhi's plan, Rajagopalachari wrote in his diary, today we scotched Gandhiji's ill-conceived plan. But no records are available of what Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru discussed with each other, in which Jawaharlal Nehru expressed his complete disagreement with this plan. And so Gandhi withdrew it. Incidentally, at that time, neither in his prayer meeting speeches or in his public utterances, Gandhi did not mention this plan. This was a personal discussion between him and the Viceroy and him and the Congress leaders. The only person who agreed with Gandhi in this plan was Khan Abdul Ghaffar. And although Maulana Abul Kalam Azad has written a lot about Gandhi and partition and so forth, he does not mention this plan. No, Congress said no, Hindi. He accepted defeat. So, also, Gandhi is also on record saying that why should I think that I alone am right and my colleagues are wrong? They are also patriots. Rightly or wrong, I'm not saying that Gandhi, in closing this chapter, did the right thing, or that in opening the chapter he did the right thing. I'm merely aware of what was done, what happened. Not saying who was right, who was unwise, who was wise. It's absolutely true that this Jinnah, I think, was a very major initiative, and frankly, if you now look back at the history of the last 75 years, if you know where Pakistan is, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, anything that was united India would have been really absolutely fantastic, but that is wo ho chuka, that has happened. But it's important to know that after all this, after the entire working committee and leadership, except for Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, prevailed upon Gandhi to withdraw this offer, which was never put to Jinnah. Gandhi and Nehru had the closest of relationships, and the record of that closeness is so clear. And it was there, it is evident during Gandhi's last fast in January of 1948. In the incredibly important meeting of the AICC in November 1947, where Gandhi puts up a tremendous fight before the Congress and says, are you going to tolerate all this hatred of the Muslims, this desire to make the Muslims second-class citizens? Please, those of you who have not read the deliberations of the November AICC conference in Delhi, just 2-3 months before his assassination, his passionate defense of the rights of the Muslims and the minorities in India, and of the Dalits in India at that time. He speaks about villages in Haryana where the Dalits are being horribly ill-treated, where judges are browbeaten. Gandhi raises those issues also. And incidentally, anyway, all that is about Gandhi. I don't have to. But this is too long an answer. I don't know whether it leaves people even more confused than they were, but that's it.
लेकिन अभी इस सवाल पर हम थोड़ी देर टिकते हैं। आपने इस किताब में लिखा है, दूसरी जगह भी आपने इसका जिक्र किया है कि हिंदुस्तान में एक तरह का नॉस्टैल्जिया है अखंड भारत को लेकर। अखंड भारत रहना चाहिए। 14 अगस्त 1947 को हिंदुस्तान की जो शक्ल थी या उसके पहले, काश वो हिंदुस्तान वापस आ जाए। अव्वल तो आप इसकी वकालत नहीं करते हैं, और दूसरे आप ये कहते हैं कि जो लोग इसकी वकालत कर रहे हैं वो खुद ये नहीं चाहते। इसे थोड़ा आप स्पष्ट।
So he's asking me to comment on this fact that those who raised the slogan of Akhand Bharat, Undivided Bharat, are not really keen on undivided Bharat. That is my view, and of course it's absolutely obvious. Those who say and attack Gandhi, by the way, in my understanding, nobody tried harder to avert partition than Gandhi did. But anyway, the Akhand Bharat champions say that Gandhi is certainly not the father of India, but he may be the father of Pakistan because he accepted partition. This is the line. Although but those who say they want Akhand Bharat, do they really want all the millions, crores Muslims of Pakistan to become part of India? Do they want all the crores of Muslims of Bangladesh to become part of India? The 14.6% Muslims today are giving them so many nightmares. Do they really want 33% Muslim population in India? The biggest opponents of Akhand Bharat are the champions of Akhand Bharat.
तो अगर इसको थोड़ा और हम आगे बढ़ाएं, और ये जो तर्क दिया जाता है कि चूंकि धर्म के आधार पर विभाजन हुआ था, तो ठीक ही है कि मुसलमान चले जाएं पाकिस्तान और हिंदुस्तान हिंदुओं का हो। आप इस बात से इनकार करते हैं कि धर्म के आधार पर विभाजन हुआ था, या धर्म के आधार पर दो राष्ट्रों का निर्माण हुआ था। इसे आप थोड़ा और स्पष्ट।
This is a very important question he's asking about the character and the basis and the nature of the partition that took place in August 1947. Now, it is absolutely true that the Muslim League from March 1940 onwards kept saying that India has two nations, the Hindus and the Muslims. From 1940, not before 40, but for 7 years, the Muslim League maintained in all its sessions, public sessions, resolutions, that India has two nations, Hindu nation, Muslim nation. Savarkar said this much earlier. From the late 1920s, he insisted that India has two nations, Hindus and Muslims. However, the Mountbatten Plan of early June 1947, to which the Congress, the Muslim League and the Sikh Party, Akali Party, all agreed, whether or not enthusiastically, they all assented to it, agreed to it. That did not refer to Hindus and Muslims being two nations. The Mountbatten Plan did not say that a Muslim nation was being created and a Hindu nation will remain. The Indian Independence Act of July 1947, which created India and Pakistan legally, which King George VI signed, I think, on the 18th of July of 1948, it's available online. It makes no mention of a Muslim state or a Hindu state. All it says was that these portions, which were the Muslim majority portions in the West and the Muslim majority portions in the East, that they would separate and form a separate country. So, in purely factual and legal terms, the partition that took place in August 47 was a division of territories, not a division of communities. Dear friends, please absorb this fact of history. India was, it is not as if Muslims became different and Hindus were left to run India. Muslim majority portions, if they wanted to, not because they were Muslim majority, but if their representatives in the Punjab legislature, in Sindh, etc., if they wanted to separate, they could separate. Similarly in Bengal. So it was a division of territories, not a division of communities in 1947. Thank you.
मैं गांधी पर बहुत बात नहीं करूँगा क्योंकि आपने सरोजिनी नायडू को उद्धृत किया है। सरोजिनी नायडू का वो बहुत ही ताकतवर पीस है जिसमें वो कहती हैं कि मेरे पिता ना तो तुम्हें इत्मीनान आराम करना है ना हमें आराम करना है, रेस्ट नॉट। लेकिन आप कहते हैं कि आप गांधी को रिहा करो, आप गांधी को मुक्त करो और जो जवाबदेहियां हैं हमारी वो गांधी पे न डालो। और आप ये भी कहती हैं कि नाउ गांधी इज सेफ, इसका क्या मतलब?
Yes, Sarojini Naidu in that powerful broadcast just a day or two after Gandhi's assassination said, "My father, do not rest and do not allow us to rest." And I do now say that we should allow Gandhi to rest. I also said Gandhi is safe. Why is Gandhi safe? Because he's dead. He can't be hurt anymore, physically, emotionally, in any way. He's beyond reach. He's perfectly content. I can picture him smiling. We are in pain and sorrow. He can afford to smile. He's safe. And the others who have also perished, so-called common people, leaders, are also all safe. It is our task. And I also say, in this book, I don't know, or I've said it elsewhere, that for a long time we blamed Gandhi for not solving all the problems of his time. We now also blame him for not solving all the problems of our time. It may be a tribute to his image that people have of him. But he was a human being, he was not a god, he was not God. Even the Almighty seems to take his own time to solve the problems of our world. It's ridiculous to expect a dead man, Nehru or Gandhi, to solve all our problems. It's our task. And I think we should allow Gandhi to rest and we should address our problems, if need be, without referring to Gandhi. We may refer to him for inspiration or whatever. Let us look at our problems and see how best to solve them.
मेरी तरफ से आखिरी इसके पहले कि आप सारे लोग करें, क्या आपने कभी इसकी कल्पना की थी कि आप एक ऐसी शाम बातचीत कर रहे होंगे जिसकी दोपहर में दो नौजवानों की जमानत देने से अदालत इनकार करे, उमर खालिद और ज्योति जगताप, कबीर कला मंच की, और दोनों अदालतें एक ही बात कहें कि उमर खालिद साजिश कर रहा था देश में दहशत फैलाने की, और ज्योति जगताप चूंकि वह इस सरकार की आलोचना कर रही थी तो वो नफरत फैला रही थी। तो ये जो पूरा जिस जगह हम पहुंच गए हैं, जहां ऐसा लगता है कि अदालतें ये कह रही हैं कि सरकार को हमसे निराश नहीं होना चाहिए क्योंकि हम इंसाफ नहीं देंगे, उसको निश्चिंत रहना चाहिए, इंसाफ की हमसे उम्मीद नहीं है। आपने हिंदुस्तान की ऐसी कल्पना की थी?
नहीं, मैंने नहीं की थी। और यही तो आज पीड़ा और शर्म और दुख की बात है। So this is certainly not India we foresaw expected. There are many ways he spoke of. Is it today's decisions? I was not even aware of this.
The plea of Umar Khalid was
Rejected. By which court?
By Delhi High Court.
Delhi High Court. And the other?
And Jyoti Jagtap of Kabir Filament, her bail petition was rejected by Bombay.
And the arguments given apparently by the courts are very disappointing and troubling. So this erosion of the rights of the individual citizen and the freedom of speech is painful beyond words, and it is accompanied by the eagerness to cause humiliation to the minorities of India. The erosion of democratic institutions is one way of describing what is happening. The wave of hatred is another way of describing what is happening. The wave of coercion and zabardasti is another way of describing what is happening. And yet another way of describing what is happening is to refer to the enjoyment of humiliation. There are some people today who derive pride and satisfaction in the humiliation of their fellow countrymen. This is where we have arrived at. And it is painful, shocking, in the deepest possible sense. It is unbearable, it is intolerable. Of course it was unexpected, I didn't expect it. But there we are, and we will have to find our strength, our response, courageous response, ingenious response, inspired response. But I think we will find that response in the course of time.